First of all, I needed to install Django. And now I want to start a new project. And I want to name it just project. I open it in my Atom editor and I want to rename parent project folder to backend folder. Now I want to apply unapplied migrations. I need Django project folder, the backend folder, and manage py. Okay, and I want to start Django server. And now I want to install Vue CLI and create a new Vue.js project. And to install Vue CLI you need to have Node.js installed. We can do it with npm install -g Vue CLI. Flag -g means that it will be installed globally. Okay, and I'm creating a new Vue.js project that I want to name just frontend. I'm choosing the default preset because it doesn't matter now. Regardless to what you'll choose, the core idea of using Django Rest Framework with Vue.js is the same. And now let's start the Vue development server. npm run serve. Sorry. Again. Okay. Backend, frontend. So let's open frontend folder, and I'm opening src folder and main.js. And as you can probably know, Vue.js has two main features. The first one is data reactivity. Reactivity means that when a value of some variable is changing, all places where this variable is used will be immediately re-rendered. And the second one is declarativity. It means that all we have to do is to specify the places where our data should be rendered, but not how this data should be rendered. And Vue.js take care of all DOM manipulations. And the entry point of the Vue.js application is the place where an instance of the Vue class is created. Here it is the main.js file in the src folder. Here we can see that this Vue instance renders the app component that was imported from the app Vue file, from this one. And the app component uses the hello world component that was imported from components hello world.vue file, this one. And in its turn, the hello world component contains the code of the main content of the page, of this page. And this chain of imports is very similar to the idea of the template inheritance in Django. So there is the Vue component, and as you can see, this file has three parts. The first part is an HTML layout of the component, and the second part inside the script tag is its logic, and the third one is its styles. That's because Vue.js implements the view model part of MVVM pattern. And actually, I don't want to use the hello world component. I want to use just app component. So I want to delete this import from app view file, and I want to delete components hello world and this logo. And now to render something to the page, I need the data object. But when we deal with the Vue.js components, the data must be a function but not an object. And this data function will return an object. And I can use this message in the template. Okay, Vue rendered the hello world message, and now I want to create some backend logic. Let's create a model, because I need something to store in a database. So let's say it will be something like a student management system. It's just an example. I don't know what to use. You can use whatever you want. Soccer players, MMA fighters, chess players, etc. And first of all, I want to create a new Django app. I need manage py file, start app, students. Here I need settings py file, and I have to add my students app to the installed apps list. Then I want to define a new URL pattern. Let's say API include students URLs. I have no urls.py file in my students folder, so I have to create it. And a new path will be students, and the handler for requests to this address will be just index function that I want to import from Vue's module of the students app. Okay. Dot means the current folder. So here in the Vue's py file, I have to define the index function that accept the request object. So I want to get all students. That will be an empty list for a while, and the index function will return JSON response object students, and I have to import JSON response from Django HTTP module. Okay, let's test it. API students. I have to restart Django server. Okay. I forgot trailing slash again. Save parameters set to false. Save. Okay, and now we can see an empty list of students. This one. And now I need the students model and a couple of its instances. So in the models py file, I am creating a new class, student, and it will have the name field. That will be char field with max length. And let's say it will have the course field and the rating. It will be integer field. Let's order them instances of the student class by the names. Okay, I've done with the model, and now I need to make migrations and to apply them. So here, okay. And now I want to create a couple of instances of the student model via Django admin. Let's register the model in admin py file. And then to use Django admin panel, I needed to create a user. Create super user command. Okay, email. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Admin. Let's create a student. And another. Okay, we have two student objects, and let's add str method to our model. Okay, now I want to change a bit my index function. I want to get all students from the database. So here I want to use the model manager objects. And I'm calling the all method. And here we have the problem that Django Rest Framework is created to solve. The issue is that the students here is a query set, the Python object that is not JSON serializable object. But to create a JSON response object, we must use here any JSON serializable object. And there are a number of ways to get JSON serializable data. In one of my last videos, I used the model to dict function from the Django Forms models module. In the last video, I guess, I used here the values method, and then I converted return query set of dictionaries to a list. It was student objects values. Then I converted query set of dicts to a list, and it was a JSON serializable data. And also we can just use a for loop to iterate through the query set and get a list of dictionaries, something like this. It works. It's a legit way, but it's a bit cumbersome and not convenient, especially when we have complex modules with foreign keys and many-to-many relationships. So it's time to use Django Rest Framework. It's a huge battery for Django that allows us to serialize and deserialize our modules to JSON format. So pip install. Now I have to include this app to install the apps. REST framework. And then I need to create a requests router. In the URLs py file of my students app. And Django Rest Framework routers automatically determine URL configuration for our modules, and its power will become obvious a bit later. From REST Framework, import routers, and now I have to create an instance of the router. Let's say that'll be a router. It will be a default router. Then I have to register a new URL pattern. And the first argument is a part of the URL I want to have. That'll be students without trailing slash. And the second argument is a handler of requests to that URL. Let's say that'll be students view set. And the URL pattern list will have a new value. Router URLs. And I can delete import. And now I have to create the handler, the students view set. It's a class that inherits its properties from model viewSet class that I have to import. Import model viewSet. In the body of students viewSet class, I can get a query set with my students. Query set that equals to students objects all. Then to say to Django how he should serialize and deserialize our models, we have to create a serializer that our student viewSet class will use. So I'm creating a new file, serializers py, and I'm importing here the model serializer class, and from models I have to import student class, and I'm creating a new class. Let's say that'll be student serializer. It's a subclass of the model serializer. Here I have to define the meta class, and the model will be the student, and the fields I want to serialize will be ID, name, course, and rating. And as you can probably guess, the idea behind the model serializer class is the same like with the model form class of the forms module. And if you know basics of Django, you can probably guess how the model serializer class works under the hood. So in my Vue.py file, I have to import student serializer. And here I have to bind my query set with this student serializer class. So serializer class, it's a student serializer, and that's all. We can delete index function. We can delete import of the JSON response class and render. Let's test it. Student's view set is not defined. URLs.py line 7. I forgot to import this. Again. Rest Framework serializers. Sorry for that. Again, it works. I've got my JSON object, and also, as you can see, Django Rest Framework provides this cool dashboard where we can perform all CRUD operations with our models. For example, I can get the detail view for the first student. And I've got Kasparov's query set, his object. Okay, and also I can delete objects by this admin. Okay, there is only Anand. Let's create Kasparov again. I perform the post request. Okay, I've got 3 Kasparovs. Nevertheless, we can create instances and delete them with this dashboard. And that's all. Our backend part is ready. And now let's create a frontend for our backend. I want to use Bootstrap, so and I want to paste CSS styles in the index.html file in the public folder. And here I want to wrap this div with the app ID with a standard Bootstrap layout. That will be the container div, the raw, and call 8 with the mx after and margin top 5 classes. That's all. And in the layout part of the my app view component, I want to create a table with the table Bootstrap class that will have thead tag with name, course, and the rating headers. I'm climbing up, and here that will be the tbody tag with the tr with the td tags. And I'm expanding this formula. Let's test it. Name, course, rating. Great. Then I'm creating a students list in the data object. Delete students. It will be an empty list for a while. And then I need a for loop for the tr tag of my table. v4 that equals to for student in students list in this one, and here I'm creating student name and also I need the key attribute for my for loop. It should be something unique, so the ID of an instance of the student class will be enough. Student ID. And now I need to perform a GET request to my Django app to get students query set. And to perform the GET request, I want to use the created lifecycle hook of my component. And in the last video, to perform requests to Django, I used Axios library, but today I want to use fetch function. So I'm creating a new variable response that will get a returning value from the fetch function, and I'm calling this address. But the server never responds immediately, so the call of the fetch function is a blocking operation. And so the fetch function call should be asynchronous. So let's make created function asynchronous. Async and the fetch await. I should await until the server will respond. Then I want to fill the students list with my query set. Await response JSON. Okay, let's test it. F5, nothing changed. Okay, let's open the console. And we can see that my request to the localhost 8000 port number from localhost 8080 port number was blocked by course policy. It's because I try to perform cross-domain request. And we can fix it by installing and using Django course headers app. So just Google it or just install it from pip. Django course headers. That's all. I have to include it to my installed apps list. And I have to include its middleware above common middleware of the Django. And also we can use course origin allow all property or a wide list of allowed domains to get responses from. So I want to just course origin allow all and set it to true. And that's all. Let's test again. F5. And I've got my query set from Django app. And now I need to create a student instance. And first of all, I need a form. So somewhere here I'm creating a form, and the form will have 3 inputs with the form control class with width call 3 and margin 2, and with the placeholder that equals to name course rating, and with the button btn success, and maybe with the submit text. Okay, great. Now I want to have the submit event handler that will perform a post request with this data to my Django app. And I'm adding the submit attribute to the form. That equals to create student function. It's a function that will handle the submit event. And also I want to prevent default behavior of my web browser. I am adding here the prevent modifier. It's because the action attribute of the form is omitted, and the browsers will perform a GET request to the address that is present in its address bar at that moment. And by default, all requests will be a GET request because my form has the method attribute too. So I'm preventing the default behavior, and then I want to create the student attribute for my Vue object. Student that will have the name, course, and rating. And now I am adding to each input tag VModel attribute to get a two-way binding between my HTML form and my Vue.js object. Okay, let's test it. Comma. And we can see when I input something in the input field, the student object data is changing accordingly. Okay, it works. And now the handler. To send the form data to my Django app, I need to create the submit event handler. And as I said before, it will be the create student function. And I want to define it in the methods dictionary. Create student. It will be asynchronous too, because I want to make a request to my Django app. So var response await fetch then parameters of the post request. The method will be post headers. Application JSON Then the body of the request will be JSON, and that's all. Okay, this students push, and I'm awaiting response from my Django. Response JSON. Okay. It works. Maybe it's better to get all actual data from the server before I perform the request. So I want to create a function, a method. Let's say it will be the get students function that will perform requests to get all students. So it will be a synchronous function, and I just copy this and paste it here, and then I just call it this get students. And here I can call the get students function before post request and after post request students, and I can delete this and paste get students call here, and I can delete definition of the response variable. Created should be async, and await, of course, because I have to wait until server will respond. So await and async. And here I think that's all. Let's test it. It works. Again, is the last because it lowercased. So let's add John. Okay, John inserted in the middle of the list. Okay, it works. And now I want to edit students' entries. And first of all, I need to get an instance of the student class I want to change, and I have to fill my form with this data. And after user will change this data, I need to save them to a database. And as we know, this students list we got from our Django app, and each element of this list contains all data of a certain instance of the student class, including its ID. And to fill the form with this data, I can just assign to the student object of my Vue instance a new value, and this value will an element of the students list. And I want to use a double click event to fill the form with students data. So I am adding to the tr tag dbl click event, and the handler will be the following. I want to refer to my Vue.js object with the $data, and I am assigning a new value to the student object. It will be a student variable of the for loop. Let's test it. It's changing. Great. And now, oh, I forgot to say that I want to use this form for creating and updating students' data. And the idea I want to use is very simple. If the student object has the ID, it means that when a user submits the form, he wants to update the data. And if the student object doesn't have the ID, it means that a user wants to create a new one. And so I want to change a handler of the submit. Let's say it will be submit form event handler, submit form function, submit. Let's create it in the methods. And the submit form function will just check whether the student object had the ID or not. If it has, I want to call the edit student method, and otherwise I want to call the create student method. So if this student ID is undefined, I want to have here an empty object. Student is an empty dictionary. So if student ID is undefined, I am calling the create student method. Otherwise, I am calling edit student method. And the edit student function will be almost like the create student. Just copy it and paste it here, but an address will be a bit different. So I delete my single quotes and I'm using these marks. I don't know, apostrophe maybe. It's something like f-string in Python. And I want to insert here the ID of the student, of a current student. So $, curly brackets, this student ID, and trailing slash. Okay, I can clear the form. With this line. Okay, let's test it. Jackie, enter, nothing changed. Method not allowed, because I used post method, but it's Django Rest Framework, so I have to use put or patch method. Again. Okay, it works. F5, it works. Great. And the last one is the deleting. The steps are the same, like with the updating, except the HTTP method of the request. So I need a button to delete students and the on-click handler for it. And I think add a new column here with the button. Outline danger class will be a small button and mx sorry x. Okay, event handler, on click, delete student. delete, and that's all. Let's test it. Students undefined. It's undefined because the student object of my data object is empty. I have to pass the student instance and the delete student method. So this delete student method takes an argument. Let's test it. Okay, it works. Great, that's all for now. If you liked the video, please thumb up and subscribe to the channel.